At 2:17 in the morning, the only sound was the hum of a heater. Then, Daniel's phone began to vibrate against the nightstand. Daniel was a man of long shifts and short conversations. He had just finished 14 hours of electrical work, driven home through a Denver whiteout, and collapsed onto his bed without taking off his boots. He had spent 11 years living this way, quiet, exhausted, and largely alone. The call went to voicemail, but a strange instinct told him to listen. A woman's voice, thin and shaking, came through the static. She introduced herself as Emily, then said the words Daniel had spent a decade trying to forget. "Your daughter is with me, and she's in trouble. Ava." He still kept her picture in the top drawer. Behind it was a scrap of paper reading, "Daddy can fix anything." It was a promise he had made to a 6-year-old girl with a broken toy airplane, a promise he hadn't kept. The end hadn't been one dramatic event, but a slow erosion of trust. A difficult divorce turned into a custody battle that Daniel didn't have the stamina to win. He told himself Sarah was better off raising Ava without his anger, convincing himself that walking away was an act of mercy rather than a failure of courage. He called the number back, but no one answered. Instead, a text appeared. "Denver Union Station, 4 a.m. Come alone. Don't call the police." Logically, he knew this could be a scam or a dangerous mistake, but the thought that his daughter might finally need him, and that he might miss the call a second time, forced him out of his bed and into the storm. Union Station at 3:58 a.m. is a cavern of marble and silence. Daniel walked across the concourse, his footsteps echoing off the high ceilings, as the heavy glass doors blurred the world outside into a swirl of white. He found her standing by a far wall. Ava was 18 now, wearing a dark jacket, staring at him with eyes he recognized from his own reflection. They stood in the silence of the station, two strangers connected only by an 11-year gap, until she finally whispered, "Dad." Daniel wanted to ask about Sarah, the woman he'd spent a decade resenting, but Ava spoke first. She told him her mother had died 3 months ago. Ava handed him a letter Sarah had written before the end. It wasn't a confession or an apology, it was a plea. Sarah wrote that they had both spent too much time being right and not enough time being parents. But as Daniel read, Ava's voice dropped. She told him the doctors called it a heart condition, but in the weeks before she died, Sarah had lived in a state of constant, quiet terror. She had been hiding something. The shock of Sarah's death was immediately overtaken by a new, colder reality. Ava hadn't just come to him for a reunion. She was running from whatever had finally caught up to her mother. They moved to a nearby cafe, the only place open at that hour. Ava pulled out a flash drive and opened a video Sarah had recorded in the final days of her life. The drive contained spreadsheets showing millions moving through a labyrinth of shell accounts. Legitimate funds fractured into hundreds of diverging lines, funneled into hidden notes. When Sarah documented this, the executives realized she was watching and began following her home. Daniel watched the screen, realization setting in. Sarah hadn't kept him away out of spite. She kept them at a distance to keep them off a map leading to people willing to kill to protect their secrets. A second text buzzed on the wooden table, vibrating violently and cutting right through the dead quiet of the empty cafe. It was the same unknown number. "You should have stayed out of this. You have until sunrise." Daniel looked out the window. The sky was beginning to turn a bruised gray. He finally understood the cost of his absence. He had left Sarah to fight this alone for 11 years, and now he had less than an hour to ensure Ava didn't face the same fate. Daniel had spent his life running from things he couldn't fix. But looking at Ava, he realized that protection isn't about being unafraid. It's about refusing to leave when the sun starts to come up. They didn't follow the text's instructions. Daniel took Ava and the flash drive directly to the police. The investigation into the embezzlement was long and complex, but Sarah's evidence provided the foundation the authorities needed to move against the firm. A year later, the snow was gone. Daniel sat in a high school stadium under a clear sky. When Ava's name was called, he was the first person on his feet. Afterward, as they stood together in the parking lot, Ava brought up that old promise about fixing anything. She told him he couldn't fix the last 11 years, and he couldn't fix what happened to her mom. But he had answered the phone, and that was enough. Regret doesn't disappear because you ignore it. It waits. It waits for years, sometimes decades, for a moment when you are forced to choose between the safety of your routine and the weight of your history. Most of us are waiting for a someday that never arrives. We assume we have time to make the call or send the letter. But sometimes life only gives you one window. The most important moments rarely look like a grand opportunity. Usually, they look like an inconvenient phone call in the middle of a freezing night. Answering it doesn't just change the future, it's the only way to finally face the past.